Hey everybody, I am going to talk about the definition of genocide, and we're going to look at it and think about examples of genocide that we've seen in our course so far. Well, here it goes. Let's see. This is the definition of genocide, and the term genocide was first coined in the mid-1940s, and it was as a response to the Holocaust, the actions of the Nazis against Jews, against Slavs, against those groups that they determined to be quote-unquote unfit. And so the Convention on Genocide, it became an international crime in the late 1940s. And here we're going to go through it, and we're going to also link it to other examples that we've seen. And you're going to link it to what happened to the Armenians, especially during the year 1915, because not enough people use the term, especially the government of Turkey and the United States, to explain what happened. In our textbook, if you look at our textbook, it says like Armenian massacres rather than genocide. And so I want to go through this definition of genocide to argue that what happened in Armenia, and to have you think about it as you're looking at evidence about what happened to the Armenian people, that it in fact was a genocide. And so in the present convention, this is in the definition of it, genocide means any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy in whole or in part a national, ethnical, racial, or religious group as such. And so a couple words I want you to focus on here. One is intent. As we saw in the Hitler quote before, with premeditation or intent, this is the plan, okay? It can't be an accident. It needs to be a plan to do this. And is it to destroy an entire group? It could be in whole or in part. And the group is either a national group, an ethnical group. Ethnic, like think of, remember how Serbia and Russia have ethnic ties. They're both Slavs. National, this could be, any group that has considers itself a nation. It could be, a current country like the French, or think back before 1871, the German people were not living in Germany, but were a national group, racial group, a religious group. Okay, and so so if the perpetrator is targeting with a plan to destroy in part or in whole any one of these groups who are defined by that. And how can this happen? There are A through E, 5 different ways in which genocide can occur. It could be purposefully killing members of that group. It could be B, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. It could be deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. D, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. E, forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. All of these are instances of what the Nazis did during the Holocaust, but of course, this isn't the only time it's happened, and unfortunately it's happened many times throughout history, and continues today. You should Google the Rohingya people in northwest Burma, where it's currently happening. It happened during my lifetime in the 1990s in Africa, in Rwanda. It happened in Darfur in the Sudan. It happened in Bosnia, in in the Balkan Peninsula in southern Europe. And so, let's see. I guess as you're looking through, so you're going to look, as you're looking for in the Armenian genocide, were people of who were the Armenians, first of all? Is it a national group? What makes them? They also look for their religion. How are they different as a religious minority group? They were targeted because of their religion. They were a religious minority in the Ottoman Empire. Figure out what that is. And this idea of Armenians, they considered themselves a national group, even though they weren't their own nation. They were under the rule of the Ottoman Empire. And you'll see how they were killed, how they were bodily or mentally harmed. This can include torture and rape. as used as a weapon of war, and deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. I'd like you to think back to the British treatment of the Indian people in the late 1800s in our imperialism unit, where due to their economic policies, the Indians were not allowed to grow their own crops, and therefore there was a man-made famine. That's a condition given when they're prohibited from growing their own crops. It's a condition of life that most likely will cause their destruction. Imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. This would be like forced sterilization. Forcibly transferring children of the group to another group. This would be similar to think of white man's burden in Africa, or think of it in the United States of Native peoples being taken from their people and forcibly educated to have their culture wiped out. Also think about the transatlantic slave trade, and think about plantation agriculture, what happened to African people during that, during the 300 years of enslavement is considered a genocide. Think about the Spanish treatment of the native people during the conquest of the New World also. Think about imperialism, and think about the treatment of the Jews by Ferdinand and Isabella in 1493, or by the Spanish toward the Muslims as well. And so there you go. This is the definition of genocide. And as you're looking at the evidence of what happened to the Armenians, I want you to put it into these categories so that you can argue that what happened to the Armenian people was indeed a genocide.